So this is my report out to you all about my first full week of commuting. I do commuter train. It's about an hour and a half each way, door to door. So it's 3 hours. I'm losing a lot of my time that I used to use for math, and that's going to affect my output, and it has. But incredibly enough, good note, I didn't lose as much as I thought I was going to lose. I thought I was going to go down by like a half. Maybe I was going to go down to like 40%, 30% of what I used to do. But I think it's turning out to be more like somewhere between 50 and 60% I can do now that I used to do. And it's very interesting because I do still have those 3 hours, 1.5 hour at the beginning of the day and end of day, that I'm technically able to think about math uninterrupted. And that's really important. Now, I do have the 1 hour of lunch in the middle, so I'm having to shift work around. So I'll just show you in the case of just to pick a section, because I know for now that I've already worked through the problems in most of the problems in section 6.1 of FIS, and all of our reading of section 6.2 happened while in this last week of commuting. And I actually also have already started on a lot of calculations on problem 2 on section 6.2. So I already have a little bit of experience. And so what's the main deal? So it looks like it's not all down from being at home, working from home, where you have all this time that you're not commuting, beginning of the day, end of the day, and you're more rested. That is true. It's not that bad. Commuting is not that bad. So if I hope I'm able to help somebody who commutes on a train, because of course, if you drive, I mean, that's a total loss. Thankfully, I can go by a commuter train and I don't lose everything. I can just sit there. So I take a book. I have a second copy of this book, and I take it on the train and I read ahead in the section that I'm going to do next. So, for example, I've already read section 6.2, so I know this last week I started reading section 6.3 on the train. That is not that effective. Actually, what I'm finding is at the beginning of the day, especially when my mind is clear, is really, really good for thinking about theorem problems. And actually, I am finding myself doing a little better on the theorem problems than I used to do when I was working from home, because I am more focused and I actually have a lot of idle time. It's not really idle, but it's time that I lost that I now am regaining. And so the calculation problems are suffering because they take a lot of time, and I have to do them during my lunch hour. And if I get busy, I'm not able to do that much during my lunch hour. So that's the calculation problems are going to take a hit, but those are the ones that are least important. And the proof problems are actually getting a little bit of a bump, a little bit of a positive improvement. So really, top of the morning, thinking about proofs, reading a little bit ahead works. Lunch hour, calculation problems, doing some reading, also, taking notes, that works fine. On the way home, though, I'm tired. The commute is just tiring. There's nothing you can do about it. And so, actually, what has worked out pretty well is a topic, just picking a topic. Now, that diverts me from linear algebra, but I have to adapt. And so, it's better to do something less than what I was doing than to do nothing or to wreck it and say, oh, I give up. I'm not a giving up kind of person. And so I've begun to read on Mariam Mirzakhani's work on moduli spaces, which is like 3 courses ahead of where I am right now. I'm going to need to take abstract algebra, some commutative algebra, some basic algebraic geometry, which is its own field with multiple parts, just like analysis. And then I'll be able to truly understand what she did. She is the first woman to have won a Fields Medal. Unfortunately, sadly, she died at 40 of breast cancer, which is a great loss, of course, obviously to her, but also to all of us who love mathematics. And so what is going to change now in the way that I do mathematics is now I will have handouts that I take on the train that I read, especially on the way home when I'm tired and I'm not really going to be absorbing that much math. So It's kind of weird because I'm talking about something that's much more advanced, but to get into a subject sometimes, in my case, I've done this before many times, it's nice to just read like the history of how it developed, who were the participants, what are the basic concepts. There's always some popular mathematics, like Quanta magazine, I think it is, wrote a really nice article about later advances that have happened, following up on Mariam's work. And so I picked up this the story of Riemann's moduli space, which is not very well written, I have to say, but it's written by somebody who understands the subject. And I think I'll put the references in this video. I'll dig them up. They're on the web. And I read this whole paper. Actually, this whole paper I've read, I think like 3 times, just to get a feel for what is done with moduli spaces. And then I also have a next handout. This is going to be next week's handout. So now I've got a cycle. Now I've got a week's handout that I read. Yes, it is fairly advanced, but it's nice. It's fun. And then this is going to be my next week's handout, which picks up on this story, but I found some more readable examples of people explaining Miriam's work and the people who do that work in that field. Moduli spaces, random hyperbolic surfaces. Of course, I'm calling it all the wrong thing, but yeah, so this one has some diagrams, so I'm looking forward to reading this one. And then I took the text out of an article, the article in Quanta magazine, and just took the text out, clipped it out into a Word file and printed it. And so this is really what Mirzakhani, where she left off. And then these 2 young ladies have taken the work further. And there's an article about her. Their names are somewhere in here. So it was Laura Monk and Nalini Anantharaman. Anantharaman is in Collège de France, La Sorbonne in Paris. And Laura Monk is in Bristol, the UK. So yeah, so there's an article about it. It's really cool. I've already read the article. And I actually have some of the preprints that were mentioned in this article. It's all way, way above my head. But there's a creative way to salvage what I think is a worse situation than I was off for mathematics. And I'll keep going that way. Now, one thing that I think is going to be effective that I have not figured out how to do is, I know for a fact that after I finish FIS and I do Galleon, I think I want to do dominant foot. I'm that crazy. And this is like long-term into the future. This is probably 2026, mid-2026, if I get there, God willing. I don't really know. So I think for a thick book like this that I do want to do, even, for example, if you wanted to do a calculus book, there's going to have to be a way that I have to figure out to do, like maybe I'll have to like scan this book by chunks and then print it. I don't think there is a PDF of this book that I have access to. I know I don't. So I'll see what happens with that. So that's really going to be the next challenge. What do I do when I'm done with a book that can be easily carried in the commuter train versus a book that cannot? Stay tuned.